underwear, underthings, undergarments, unmentionables, intimates, underclothes, lingerie, the devil's clothes, nethergarments, small clothes. These are the terms we give to the things we wear under the things we wear. But what did we wear under the things we wore before we wore the things we wear under the things we wear? The chemise. Stretching back hundreds of years, women wore a garment underneath their outer garments called a chemise or a smock, depending on where you were and what time period it was. The basic purpose of this garment was to keep outer clothes from touching the skin and getting infected with sweat and odor and all of that gross stuff because they didn't wash their clothes as often and their methods of washing weren't as advanced. So basically you would wear a chemise or a smock against your skin every day and when you slept, and that would be washed more often and it would protect more expensive, nicer outer garments. Depending on the period, they were shaped a little bit differently. In the 1800s, when off-the-shoulder looks became very popular, they developed an off-the-shoulder chemise. For most of the 1700s, they came over the shoulders because everybody was wearing sleeves. They were usually made out of cotton or another lightweight and easily available fabric. I'm going to be making one out of this muslin I bought at Joann Fabrics because basically I want something to be able to wear as a foundation under most of my historical garments. So basically anything pre-1900 I'm going to wear this with, and I was debating how to get a chemise that would work for all of those periods, including on the shoulder and off the shoulder looks, and I was bemoaning this on FaceTime with my best friend Hannah Gatilius, and she pointed out that I could simply make a drawstring chemise, so if I pull the drawstring tighter, the neckline will be closer and it'll sit on my shoulders, and if I loosen it, it can move to sit off the shoulders. Here's an image of us making that discovery. A chemise is a pretty simple garment. It's really just gathered at the neckline. They don't even really gather at the waist most of the time because the waist is going to be fitted by whatever overgarments you wear, and they just want it to be loose. It's also worth noting that they didn't wear up until the 1890s or so. Nobody wore anything under these because basically if you had to go to the bathroom, you just went. And they didn't want anything between bathroom parts and the bathroom, really. This is going to be a pretty simple project because the only shaping that really happens is at the neckline. Everything else is just a rectangle. So I'm hoping that I can get this done in one day. So let's get to work. The first step was to measure from my neck to where I wanted it to hit, which was about mid-calf, and then I also took measurements of my bust and my hips, which are the widest parts of my body, just to make sure that it would be able to go around those with excess. My hip measurement was about 44 inches, and this fabric is 18 inches folded in half, which means it is 36 inches wide. So if I have a 36-inch piece in the front and a 36-inch piece in the back, it will go around my hips no problemo. Therefore, I simply cut out two rectangles 48 inches long and did not cut any width because they were already the perfect width. Then I laid those out on top of each other and cut out a neckline and some armholes. Then I sewed together the side seams and the straps, and because the edges of this garment are the selvage edges, that means that the seams are already finished. So this is what we have at this point, this beautiful potato sack. It looks super wonky because it's not gathered yet, but I think once the neckline is gathered, it's actually going to fall perfectly. The arm size are just a little bit too small for my arms, so I'm actually going to go in and cut those down a little bit, and then I'm going to sew in the channel for the cording, and then I'm going to pop some cording in it, hem it. It's going to be done. I cut the armholes a little bit deeper and sewed over the top of the side seams to re-secure that area. So I found this thin green ribbon with little gold details that I'm going to use to run through the channel at the neckline. It actually even looks a little bit too fancy for this kind of chemise, but it's what I had. It's actually from my senior year prom garter, and I did not know until I went to college that not every high school has prom garters. So at my high school, we all wore a garter under our prom dress, and they like matched our dresses, and it was like a big business to make and sell prom garters at my high school. And then every prom photo shoot had pictures of girls like lifting up their dress so you could see the garter. And not until I went to college did I learn that many people consider that weird. But I still have mine, and I still have this ribbon left over from it, so I'm going to put it to good use. I simply folded over the top edge to form a channel for the ribbon to run through, and if anyone can guess what song I was lip-singing along to here, if you put it in the comments, I will make and send you a chemise, I guess.
I cut 2 little holes in the center front of the channel for the ribbon to enter and exit through. The next step was to use a safety pin to thread the ribbon through the channel. However, since I had just reorganized everything, that meant I couldn't find anything and I had to go on a long hunt for a safety pin, but eventually I found one and began threading it through. Other things I located in my sewing supplies included this enchilada recipe from one of my favorite professors, this magnet that some Mongolian campers gave me a few summers ago, and this pin a barista once gave me to promote his band. Anyway, my safety pins were actually in my thread bag. Who knew? While threading the ribbon through, I hit a bit of a snag when I came to one of the shoulder seams. For some reason, something about that area just did not want to let the safety pin pass through, so after quite a bit of fiddling with it, I actually had to go in with a seam ripper and open up the seam just to get the ribbon through, and then later I had to go in and stitch that back up, being careful not to sew over the ribbon. I also used a lighter to melt the ends of the ribbon so that it wouldn't fray. It's worth noting that the only things I've ever used this lighter for are birthday candles and melting or burning fabric. I just put that in so in case my mom watches this, she won't feel concerned that I have a lighter in my room. I tried it on and everything looked good, so it was off to hemming the bottom and the armholes with a rolled hem.
So it is completely finished, and I don't even think that took an hour. This was seriously one of the quickest and easiest sewing projects I've ever undertaken, and I can wear it with virtually all of my historical costumes, so this one is a slam dunk for sure. The drawstring neckline means I can both raise and lower the neckline depending on what I'm wearing, and I can extend it enough that it can get taken off the shoulders and then just tie it tight so it stays there. So it's super versatile. I'm going to show you guys what it would look like with a corset over top, because that's how it would usually be worn. You would wear a chemise and then a corset and then your petticoats, or sometimes your petticoats before your corset depending on the era. But anyway, chemise, petticoats, corset, and then your outer garments.
So this is what it looked like under this Victorian styled corset. And since women slept in these, this is what it would look like sleeping. Wait a minute, something's wrong. Ah, much better.